Today's story begins with something truly unforgettable, something that didn't just stun the audience of Britain's Got Talent but transported an entire theater back in time to the year 1945. Before we go deep into this emotional and powerful moment, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again on this journey where we explore the stories behind the acts that touched millions. Here, we celebrate talent, courage, and the moments when ordinary people create something extraordinary. And today's story, it's one of the most breathtaking performances ever seen. Before we enter that stage, we need to talk about someone who has been at the heart of so many of these moments. Simon Cowell. To many people, he is the toughest judge in the entertainment world, known for his sharp comments and high standards, but behind the scenes, behind the cameras, and behind the reputation, there is another side to him. A side that a lot of people don't know. Simon has spent years helping people in ways that don't always make the spotlight. He has supported struggling contestants, encouraged young talent, and shown kindness to individuals who walked onto that stage with trembling hands and dreams that felt too big to hold. He has been the push behind so many lives changing, the voice that says, "You can do this," when someone feels like they can't. And today's performance is one of the many moments where Simon's compassion shines through, even without words. On the night of this particular audition, the theater was buzzing with excitement. The audience filled the seats with chatter and anticipation, the judges were preparing for another long day of surprises, and the stage stood waiting for the next act. No one knew what was coming. No one had the slightest idea that the next performance would take them on a time-traveling emotional journey straight into the heart of World War II. The stage lights lowered. A calm hush spread across the audience. And then, from behind the curtains, they entered, a choir unlike any choir seen before on Britain's Got Talent. They were not children, nor a group of flashy performers dressed for modern pop. Instead, they walked in wearing 1940s attire, vintage coats, old-style uniforms, wartime dresses, and hairstyles that belonged to a different era. It was as if a piece of history had stepped into the present. The audience exchanged curious looks. The judges leaned forward. Even Simon raised an eyebrow, sensing something unusual and powerful in the air. As the choir arranged themselves into formation on the stage, there was a stillness, a silence almost sacred. The eldest member held a small, worn photograph in her hands. Not as a prop, but as a memory. A memory of someone she had lost long ago. A loved one perhaps. A soldier. A family member. A story locked inside her heart. The choir director gave a gentle nod, and the performance began. What happened next felt like magic. But it wasn't magic. It was emotion, history, and humanity blended together in a way rarely seen on a talent show stage. The music started softly, an old wartime melody, the kind sung quietly by families waiting for their loved ones to return from the battlefield. Then, the harmony layered in like waves of time wrapping around the audience. Their voices were not just singing. They were telling a story. A story of love. A story of loss. A story of hope in the darkest of times. A story of 1945. The choir's voices carried the weight of the past. Every note felt like a message written by someone who once lived through bombings, fear, separation, and the longing for peace. Their sound wasn't just beautiful, it was hauntingly real. One by one, the spotlight moved across the members. Each face reflected something deeper. Some looked like they were reliving old memories, some looked like they were singing for someone who never came home. The audience felt it instantly. Goosebumps swept through the theater. Some people placed their hands over their mouths. A few had tears streaming down their cheeks before they even realized it. It wasn't just a performance, it was a moment suspended in time. And then, the soloist stepped forward. A young woman with soft eyes and a calm, steady presence. When she opened her mouth, the theater transformed. Her voice rose with the kind of clarity that cuts straight through the heart. It wasn't dramatic or showy. It was raw, emotional, and full of truth. She sang like someone who had read letters written by soldiers, who had stood beside her grandmother as she told stories of air raid sirens and ration lines. She sang like someone who understood that the past isn't gone. It lives in every memory we carry. The camera shifted to the judges. Alicia Dixon wiped a tear from her eye. Amanda Holden pressed her hands together against her lips. Bruno Tonioli looked completely still, unusually quiet, completely overtaken by the moment. And Simon sat there without blinking. His usual tough expression had softened. His eyes reflected something deep, something human, something touched. It was one of those moments where the loud, sharp celebrity disappears, and the caring, thoughtful person inside comes through. You could see that he understood what this meant. He felt the weight of it. The performance grew even more powerful. The choir began blending spoken words with singing. Letters from 1945 read aloud as if ghosts of the past were whispering through time. One voice read a message from a soldier to his wife. Another read a farewell from a mother to her child. A young boy in the choir read a note found years later in an abandoned trench. Each word carried the truth of real lives lived through unimaginable fear and hope. As the choir built toward its final harmony, the theater was completely silent. Not a single cough, not a whisper, not even a breath from the audience could be heard. The performance had transported them all. Back to 1945, back to the final days of war, back to the moment humanity finally breathed again when peace arrived. And then, silence. For a moment, no one moved. The music had ended, but its echo lingered in the air like smoke from a forgotten battlefield. The audience looked as if they were waking up from a dream. Then came the applause. It wasn't the usual kind, the loud, excited, television-type applause. It started slow, almost reverent, like people were afraid to break the spell. But then, it grew. Louder, stronger, until the entire room was on its feet, cheering, crying, clapping with everything inside them. The choir members looked overwhelmed. Some smiled through tears, others pressed hands to their hearts, understanding that they had accomplished something extraordinary. When Simon finally spoke, his voice was soft but full of meaning. He told them that what they had just done was not simply singing. It was honoring history, honoring families, honoring those who lived and those who never returned. He said that talent isn't always about hitting the highest notes or having the flashiest performance. Sometimes, the greatest talent is storytelling, the ability to make people feel something real. And with that, he pressed the golden buzzer. The moment the button lit up, gold confetti exploded from above, swirling around the choir like a shower of memories falling from history itself. The members looked up, some stunned, some crying, some holding each other in disbelief as the golden light covered them like the sun rising after a long night. The audience roared with celebration. Simon stood up, smiling warmly, one of those rare, genuine smiles that reveal who he truly is. The kind man who uses his power not just to judge, but to lift people up. To recognize something meaningful, to support acts that bring hope, healing, and humanity to the world. The choir director stepped forward, shaking as he tried to speak. He explained that the choir had been formed to honor families who lived through the war, especially those who lost loved ones. Many of the members were grandchildren and great-grandchildren of people who lived during 1945. Some had brought personal items, photographs, letters, and memories, to connect with the past. Their mission was simple: to remind the world that peace was earned through sacrifice, and that those memories should never be forgotten. The rest of the season followed their journey, each performance carrying more emotion, more history, more soul. They became a symbol of remembrance, unity, and hope. And that night, when they first stepped onto the stage dressed in 1940s attire, they didn't just sing, they brought the past back to life. They made millions of people remember, millions reflect, and millions feel grateful for the peace they live in today. It was more than a performance. It was a tribute, a time machine, a gift to the world. And it all happened on a stage meant for entertainment, but became a place of remembrance. This is the power of talent. This is the power of storytelling. This is the power of kindness. And sometimes, kindness comes from a man many people think is the toughest judge in the world, yet carries a heart full of compassion.